All right, let's get into it. So we have the frequency of belief. It's only a wisdom synergy thing. Yeah, so we got another episode for you. What if the greatest illusion humanity has ever created isn't a machine? And it isn't the government? It isn't even religion. Hmm. What if it's certainty itself? Every generation believes it's finally figured out reality. Yep. We built schools to teach our version of the fucking truth. Yeah. We built universities to defend that shit and governments to regulate it. Yeah. Religion to protect it. Then history quietly reminds us that certainty has a terrible track record. It sure does. And the earth was once the center of the universe. Disease was blamed on evil spirits. Yep. Continents weren't supposed to move either. The sky wasn't supposed to contain billions of galaxies. Each idea felt unquestionable until it just wasn't. So, here's the question. If history keeps proving that yesterday's certainty becomes today's misconception, why would we assume our generation's different? That's the investigation today. Not what to believe, but how belief itself shapes reality. Human beings don't simply inherit knowledge, that's for sure. We inherit stories, lots and lots of stories. Stories about why we're here, stories about what's possible, and some of those stories are supported by evidence. Cha-ching! Others survive simply because they've been repeated long enough. Questioning those stories doesn't make someone dangerous, like Darkwing Duck. It makes them curious, like George. Curiously built civilization. Blind certainty has destroyed more than one. The challenge is learning the difference between healthy skepticism and believing in every extraordinary claim that comes along. One closes the mind, the other leaves it wide open. Wisdom lives somewhere in between. One pattern has fascinated me for a while now. Across civilizations separated by oceans, languages, centuries, we find strangely familiar ideas. Creation through sound, creation through vibration, creation through spoken words. In Genesis, creation begins with speech. Let there be light. In Hindu traditions, the sacred Om represents the vibration from which existence unfolds. Australian Aboriginal dreaming traditions describe song as part of its creation and the shaping of the land. Ancient Egyptian traditions described creation emerging from divine speech. Different cultures with different symbols, yet a surprisingly familiar theme. Did every civilization independently invent this idea? Or were they pointing towards something they experienced in different ways? I don't know. But it's worth asking. Modern science has given us something fascinating, not proof of ancient, creation stories, but a reminder that vibration is woven deeply into nature. Sound moves the air, earthquakes move the continents, and heartbeat moves the blood. Light itself behaves as a wave under many conditions. The universe is anything but still. Then there's somatics. Have you ever seen it? It's pretty incredible. You place sand or water on a vibrating plate, they change the frequency. The material, it reorganizes itself into intricate geometric patterns. You change the frequency, change it again, and the pattern changes again. The matter didn't disappear, it simply reorganized. Yeah. Frequency became form. Now, does that mean that sound created the universe? Not really. No. It's just that's a leap beyond the evidence. But it does demonstrate something that I find remarkable. Patterns emerge from vibration, and that alone deserves our attention. So I started looking. Nikola Tesla was looking too. He once said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Whether or not those words are quoted perfectly every time they're shared online or not, the sentiment reflects something central to Tesla's work. He saw reality as dynamic, alive, and interconnected, not a collection of isolated objects, but relationships, fields, forces, movement. Modern physics paint an incredibly complex picture of reality and wave functions and quantum fields, electromagnetic interactions, gravity bending gravity's oh my god, gravity bending space-time, and none of the it resembles simple mechanical universe our ancestors had imagined. Reality appears stranger than common sense ever prepared us for. But here's where I think people sometimes lose the plot. When you have science becomes mysterious, and then some rush to explain everything, others refuse to question anything, neither extreme helps. So mystery isn't weakness. It's honesty, and the phrase "I don't know" has probably advanced human civilization more than a declaration of certainty ever has. So, because once you admit you don't know, you're finally free to learn. Yeah, think about language, and like ideas are invisible until expressed. Yet words start wars, end wars, build nations, destroy families, inspire revolutions, heal broken people. Sound alone isn't magic, but communication changing reality every single day. Maybe that's why ancient traditions gave words such incredible importance. Not because, Sisyphus cast supernatural spells, but because ideas shape behavior. Behavior shapes culture. Culture shapes civilization. Everything begins with a thought, your imagination, then a word, then an action, then history. It writes itself. Symbols work much in the same way, just like a flag or a cross, a dollar sign. We all know these. A corporate logo. None of these objects possess physical power. Yet, millions of people organize their lives around them. Symbols are compressed stories. I love symbols. The human mind responds to stories more readily than statistics. So, which means whoever controls the narrative or narratives often influences behavior. That's why questioning narratives matters. Not because every narrative is false, not at all, but because every narrative deserves explanation or examination. And here's the danger: if you begin questioning everything, like I do, you can accidentally start believing anything. So it gets dangerous. That's the trap. You know what I mean? The critical thinking isn't rejecting every mainstream idea, because you got to know the good and the right and the wrong. It's weighing evidence carefully, being willing to change your mind and follow where the facts lead. And I have a hard time with that sometimes, even when they contradict your favorite theory. Especially then, because reality doesn't care about our perfect preferences. It doesn't care about our preferences at all. Maybe the greatest conspiracy isn't hidden knowledge, even. Maybe it's our own tendency to confuse familiarity with truth. And the stories repeated most often begin to feel inevitable. So until someone asks, what if we've misunderstood something? Every major discovery started there. Not with certainty, with curiosity. So where does that leave us today? Not with answers, but with a better question. Question confidently, but conclude carefully. You stay open, you stay grounded, separate evidence from speculation, and wander from certainty. Because the universe doesn't owe us a simple explanation, it invites us into exploration. And perhaps wisdom isn't arriving at the final answer. Perhaps wisdom is remaining curious long after everyone else has decided the conversation is over. So until next time, you guys keep questioning shit, and you keep listening, because somewhere between what we know and what we merely believe is where discovery begins. So until next time, man, I'll smell you guys later. I'm going to leave you with that deep one right there. Okay? Comment below, man. Show some love. I'll talk to you guys later.